because in the early days of the business, I was working Saturdays. I was working late. That's because I kept thinking I just need to fix more cars to make more money, which, as we know, is not the case. Most shop owners that I talk to, and I'll preface this that I talk to because of my social media community, most of them could change their entire business by just adjusting the way they run the business, and they can actually do what I did, where I worked on less cars, but actually started making more revenue.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting, thought-provoking episode of the Jaded Mechanic Podcast. My name's Jeff, and I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey of reflection and insight into the toils and triumphs of a career in automotive repair. After more than 20 years of skin knuckles and tool debt, I want to share my perspectives and hear other people's thoughts about our industry. So pour yourself a strong coffee or grab a cold Canadian beer and get ready for some great conversation.
Where that comes from, but
Yeah.
you know, it's true. I mean,
You said something very powerful yesterday or last year when you first met Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what you said to Paul?
when he said none of this matters, none of this stuff matters.
I remember I was with you and you said what really stood out with Paul is how strong Paul was with his faith.
Yeah, correct.
And to not stop doing that.
Yeah.
So before I get too far into that topic, I want to just introduce, I'm sitting here today with Chris Enright of Enright Auto.
Hello, everybody.
And his lovely wife, Marissa.
Hello.
So, and we're at AST 2023.
Yes.
And I just posted on the Jaded Mechanic podcast Facebook. That's what you're listening to, by the way, is a Jaded Mechanic podcast. That it is a whirlwind here. And it is just, you guys arrived late last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, later than I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're here because you've done an episode with me and we've kind of told your story and everything else. But what I really want to know is, what is it like to have what's the business dynamic of the marriage, and how does it, what are some of the obstacles? What are some of the great things that come with it? Because, and I'm not trying to delve into your personal life. Understand that, right? That's not what I'm about. But I mean, I want to hear maybe the frustration sometimes that you have, like, because you had a rough day last week. You had to spend your Sunday. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
I messed up a car. So I was doing an oil pump reseal, and it's not a small job, and I sandbagged it too on top of that. So it took me all day, and then once I found out what was wrong, and I only had like about an hour and a half left in the day to try to fix it, and so I tore it back down because I thought I knew what was wrong with it, and I didn't know what was wrong with it.
It was not the seal.
Not the seal.
Yeah.
So then I had to go in on Sunday, family day that I love. Saturdays and Sundays I'm closed. Like, I'm early on in the business, and we'll probably, actually, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but early on in the business, I spent a lot of time in the shop, and we had talked, going into it, that we knew there was going to be some sacrifices that had to be made. And that's a point I'll make, is you need to have those conversations with your significant other.
Yeah.
But now I'm very, very particular, and I have very strong boundaries when it comes to the shop and my family. Mm-hmm. And being that the shop's at my house makes it difficult. So we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
But I had to work my Sunday, so that was not cool. That sucked, but that was on me. It was my mistake.
Because I know how important Sunday is to you.
Yeah.
Right? You're a man of faith. We were talking about that. And it's, you believe that is the day that you should, even if it's not about faith, right? Even if you don't practice, but it's still the day that should be with family. Was that hard for you? Like, did you feel a little bit of frustration of the fact that he's not going to be there on Sunday?
I did not. It's not going to always be that way.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't always that way, but I knew something was wrong. Like, I knew he was off. And so I just let him have his space. And then he just looked at me and he said, I'm going to have to work Sunday. Do you remember what I said to you?
I don't remember now.
I just said, okay. Because the worst thing that we can do as a supporting wife when our husbands are in that tension is say, oh, well, what happened? What did you do? Why? Like,
very much
nobody wants to hear that when you know you're already in a tough situation.
Yeah.
So you're not making the situation any better. So even if I'm inside, I'm like, oh, well, that sucks,
Yeah.
But I looked at him and I said, okay. Well,
Because I think I know as a man, if my significant other was to ask me, well, what happened? What went wrong? She's asking because she's genuinely concerned.
Correct.
You're taking it as if immediately my back is already up and I'm like, she's already frustrated and she's already venting to me about her
Yes.
frustrations, and who am I going to explain to her? Because I mean, I could tell her it's the who's on it and the what's it and it's all the waffling, and she would not know what I'm even speaking of.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like I talked about this because I shared all of this. I try to be as transparent as possible on social media. So I shared all this on social media, and I told everybody, I said, listen, especially to you shop owners, I said, if this situation happens like this with your tech, don't beat them up, because I can promise you that no one's beating themselves up more than themselves. And so when you go out and berate them and hammer them about the mistake they made, it just makes the entire situation worse. And so I said, just ask them what happened as an owner, talk to them, communicate, but don't berate them, don't beat them up, because again, they are going to already be beating themselves up, and that's how I am. No one will ever beat me up about a mistake more than myself. I was frustrated with myself. I knew it was something simple and something dumb that I just didn't pay attention to, and that's exactly what it ended up being. And so I was just frustrated at all the decisions I had made throughout the day as well, sandbagging the job, not paying attention, distracted, it was all on me. So, she does a really good job. It wasn't always that way. We've grown a lot, even before the shop. I don't know how personal we want to get with things, but I've shared it on several times on the podcast, or, on social media and stuff about, our experiences together. But, we've been through a lot as a couple, for sure. And instead of allowing those situations to break us and push us further apart, we've used them to work through it and grow together, because we know.
Well, we can't let those things dictate our marriage.
Right.
That's not where it started, and that's not where we are wanting to go.
Right.
So if we let the outside sources that are coming against us dictate our marriage, it's not going to go well. You're always going to have something coming against you. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And that's the plan. So we're just going to push forward, and instead of pulling apart in the situation, we're going to come together and link hands, because we both want the same end result.
Yeah.
And we talk about that end result. Okay, well, what do we want this year? What are we going towards? And we're on the same page, and when we're communicating, that really helps us stick together in those hard situations when it seems like we're not getting to where we want to go.
Yeah.
But when we pull together, there's no option. There's nothing else pulling. We're pulling together and pushing through.
Yeah.
So you can't be butting heads when situation gets
Is
hard.
it hard though, because you had a job where the business wasn't right in the backyard? So was it kind of that little bit of time, that distance away from the home? Was it easier to keep the job away from the home life when it was farther apart, or are you just good enough at handling it that it doesn't really matter that it's literally right outside the back door? You leave it when you lock that door, or you leave it there and you bring it home?
That's a good question. No, I feel like I was pretty good. There were days, obviously, like everybody has days, but it was easier for sure to separate it, and it wasn't my business.
Right.
And the fact that it's right outside is difficult, right? So if I'm inside with the kids and there's 8 cars out in the parking lot, and I know I'm super swamped and I've got work to do, I'm thinking about it.
It pulls at you,
And
right?
it's very hard. Now I feel like, and she'll be the one to have to attest to this, but I feel like I've gotten a lot better. It's something that I'm trying to pay attention to and trying to separate myself. Again, I'm trying to create clear boundaries, and a lot of that has been done because of all these changes I made, because in the early days of the business, I was working Saturdays.
Yeah.
I was working late.
You are working a lot more.
Yeah, way more. So, but that's because I kept thinking I just need to fix more cars to make more money, which, as we know, is not the case.
It's not. Car count is important.
Yes.
But it is not as much the priority as we have made it for so long.
For sure.
It's not the yardstick of how we judge whether you're good or bad, right?
Not even close. And it's most shop owners that I talk to, and I'll preface this, that I talk to because of my social media community, most of them could change their entire business by just adjusting the way they run the business, and they could actually do what I did, where I worked on less cars but actually started making more revenue.
And I will say, when you made those changes, when we talked about it and you were like, this is what I'm going to do, your whole attitude changed. Like when you came home from the shop, it was still hard, but you had a new perspective, and I think it really changed you coming home. Also, your attention and your optimistic outlook on the business. Because I think because you saw a different future.
Yeah.
Before you felt stuck. You're like, there's no way. You came to me one day and you're like, we can't make this work.
I remember you talk about the lot where you said to Marissa, you said, we're never going to be able to hire another technician. And right, and then I have such admiration for you, as I do a lot of owners that came from a tech background, is because you appreciate how if you're going to hire a tech, like you said to me, I'm not going to hire a tech just because I need one.
Yeah,
I'm going to hire one, and when I can provide them with the lifestyle and the treatment and the culture that they deserve.
100%.
Right?
100%.
So good on you for not just making that snap decision. I need somebody now. I'm not going to be able to get these cars done if I don't get a person.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with, I have seen, like there was several other people that I knew that had started shops around the same time that I had, either before or after, and they grew a lot faster than I did. But they weren't doing any better.
Right.
They were higher revenue numbers, but their profit margins weren't there. They were still struggling with their problems were just a lot bigger, but for no more money. And so I told her, I'm like, I want to make these changes before we hire a tech, before we grow into a bigger shop, before we do that. It's not going to fix everything. No. But my plan is, and my plan has always been since I started making these changes, is to try to fix these things now. So that is a thing of the past, and I can focus now on my business and my employees instead of I just need to hire more techs and get a bigger shop and then hire more techs and then just fix more cars and never fix the actual problems with the business. Yeah. And so that has been my goal. And so that's why we've implemented a lot of those things in a lot of SOPs and changed, you know, the whole story, all that stuff. So I didn't know that. I mean, I guess I never really paid attention that my, attitude and everything changed. So that's
because I know for so long when I was, and I've been in this industry a long time, I know that I can say honestly that I would come home so many days angry and just upset with how the day went in terms of the way I was treated and the political thing, right, that goes on within a dealership. That it did it ruin the relationship? No, it didn't ruin it. But it was definitely one of the factors of why I was not a nice person to be around, and this is why. So when I talk about what I want to change within this industry, I'm not just trying to change it for him. I'm trying to change it for somebody like yourself. Yeah. And God bless you for having the understanding of what he has gone through and what we've gone through and sticking by it, because was it Haken that talked about the amount of the percentage of technicians and their marriage is not working.
Oh yeah, I don't remember if that's who it was, but I did see that. Yeah, and it's a lot. It's well over 50%. I think in technicians it's like 60-something% or something like that. It's a high number. Yeah, and that, like, she talks about it, like the end days of the dealership. Like you can touch on that. Like I was coming home like upset.
Just very angry. All you wanted to do when you got home was escape. Video games and things. I mean, I would literally, would make dinner. I mean, I worked a full-time job at the time, came home, made dinner. He's playing video games and I'm like, hey, dinner's gonna be ready in 5 minutes. Never came to the table. I sat and ate dinner by myself after working all day. And I'm like, well, it would be nice to eat dinner with my husband. I just made a meal. But I think honestly, he was just in that place of such frustration that he wanted to escape. He couldn't even engage with his wife. Yeah. Not that he didn't want to. He just didn't have the capacity.
Didn't want to think anymore. Just wanted to check out, not think about anything, just do something mindless after, I mean, it's the normal, you're dealing with the crap car or the crap warranty job or the advisor that's, I'll get you on the next one or, all of that stuff. So all of those things combined, and then it continues every day. Now, I will say this on top of that, because that's not all just the place that I worked. A lot of that does have to do with perspective. I was not in a good place in my perspective as well. Now, granted, all that stuff is still true, but you can take that, multiple ways, and I just was not heading in a good direction overall. And so my perspective was bad. My work environment was bad. I mean, I left the dealership out of frustration. Like, we had a date set, and then I came home one time and I was like, I'm quitting. What I say, Monday or something?
Yeah, something. I was like, okay, I guess.
Because we were planning on doing it several months afterwards. I don't remember the exact time, but I was like, I'm quitting Monday. I was like, it's going to be my last day or Friday or whatever it was.
Right.
And she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I cannot take it one more day. Just could not. Even my service manager was blindsided. Nobody had any clue, but I just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I was just ready for a change. And we had talked about it a lot. I mean, we specifically sold our house before to buy this property, specifically knowing we were going to start a shop. So I already had that in my head.
Yeah.
We just didn't have I was still really nervous.
I was going to say that. You were very hesitant.
Yes.
And I think honestly, you just didn't have the confidence. You were scared.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And
terrified.
I think
it is. It's terrifying. For
Right?
sure. Any new change.
Yeah.
Not even just starting your own business. Right? But you and I know what it's like to leave one place of employment and go into another one. And it doesn't matter how the interview went. It doesn't matter what they promised you. Reality hits at 8:00 that first day. And that's not even really real reality. That's just what they're going to show you.
Yeah.
We're just talking with another gentleman. He talks about the first 3 months is like the honeymoon phase. Working at a dealership is like a marriage. The first 3 months is just like, wow, I'm making so much money.
Yeah.
And they're so good to me, and they smile at me all the time. And then at month 3, that very next day and going into month 4, it's like all of a sudden, I think he's cheating on me. I think because they might see another toolbox wheel in, and then all of a sudden,
trouble in paradise.
Trouble in paradise.
That's how it was at my first shop. I just was so excited to finally make it into a shop, and then I was just, nothing else mattered. And then all that started wearing off, and then you're just like, okay, this frustrates me or whatever. And again, I always like to say, a lot of it does have to do with perspective. So we are involved with a lot of that, but definitely scared, definitely worried, because she was home with the kids. Right. Well, at that time, kid. We had one kid at that time, so.
So that was a big adjustment. We went from me working full time as an ophthalmic assistant, and then we had a baby, and then I came home all at the same time.
Can you say what you were again?
Ophthalmic assistant.
I don't know what that is.
So it's an eye doctor, but they do surgery. So they're a medical doctor.
Okay.
So
Right.
I worked for a glaucoma specialist, and I just assisted him with all his
Yeah,
procedures and things.
Keep this into perspective. For a very long time as a tech, she was making more money than I was, and she never went to school, never did any training, literally started there not knowing anything.
I know nothing about the eyeball.
Ever. Nothing.
And I became his head technician. So
there were lots and lots of years that she was getting paid more than me.
Right.
As a tech who went to school, went to training.
How much money invested in tools?
So much.
You?
Nope, nothing.
They paid for everything.
They paid
got
for
her
my
certified.
certification. Yeah.
They had great retirement benefits, literally everything that you could imagine they offered. And looking at that time, I was just always frustrated that she made not for her, but I wanted to make more money.
Exactly.
That's to me, that's what I wanted to be, was the provider of the family. That's how I felt. I'm like, I want to be able to provide. I don't want you to have to make more money than me. And so that was always the frustration. I'm like, I should be getting paid more. But now looking back, I see how much even more ridiculous it is of how much we have to invest and put in all this stuff and getting paid less than someone who never had training. And she did a fantastic job. She was great at that job. Her doctor loved her. He was devastated when she quit. And so, it's just one of those things. This is why we're doing what we're doing, right? To help change all this. But yeah, so doing all that, and then I was making great money. I was making $100,000 a year, before we left.
You were miserable, but you were making it.
Yeah, well, I was miserable for sure. But I talk about that a lot. Twice, actually probably more than twice, but for sure twice in my career, I've taken major pay cuts, and both times I was much happier.
Yes.
Taking the pay cuts and what I was doing.
And I would rather have a happy husband than going on 4 vacations a year.
Yeah.
So that's such a powerful thing to say, because there's a stereotype sometimes that a lot of people will look past the fractures in the chinks in the armor of their spouse when they're, how we move away from this comfort level of living. Mm-hmm. How do we move away from that? Mm-hmm. Right. And that puts a lot of stress on all of us in the industry, but it puts a lot of stress on a man because you're like, when we talk about how men struggle with mental health and we struggle with that weight, you always feel like you're chained to everything. Mm-hmm. It's because once you get to that level, right, it's through thick and thin, for better or for worse, but it's not always for worse anymore, right? It's not always through the thin times. Mm-hmm. And we go to work sometimes feeling that pressure of, I don't want to take that from her or my kids, that level of what I've provided for them. I don't want to take that away. They don't deserve that to be taken away. The reality is that it's not about deserve, right? We don't get what we deserve. That's a myth. Right. We do not get what we deserve, and life is not fair. We have to. It's about self-preservation, right? And God bless you for being able to make him feel like whatever is going to happen, if we make less, we are going to be okay.
Well, I think that's also about communicating too, because he could, like you were saying, maybe he thought, oh, well, if I take a different job, I'm going to make less and she's going to be unhappy because we're not going to be able to do these things. Mm-hmm. But when we're communicating, I'm going to tell him, I would rather you be happy and joyful in what you're doing every day. And in turn, I can enjoy you and who God made you. And then, the whole family is happier and he can continue doing what he's called to do. So if we're not communicating, then I could be put in a situation where I'm holding him back and I might not even know I'm doing it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, the family unit is such a powerful thing that people tend to.
It gets overlooked way too much.
Way too much. And
huge.
But communication is huge. Like we talk about that all the time now. We're over communicators by nature, both of us.
And we still miss it sometimes.
We still miss it sometimes, but we're a lot of type of people like, hey, I'm leaving. I'll text her, hey, I'm heading out. Then I'll text her, hey, I just got here. Hey, this is what's going on. Like we're constantly in communication. It's just how we've, as long as I can remember, even since we were dating, we've both just always done that. But we've always, like, especially big decisions, like even when I'm buying stuff for the shop and things like that, like always talk to her about it. I'm like, hey, I don't just come home with like some random huge whatever. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about buying this. And she always knows like when I'm doing those kind of things.
You explain it well too. You say, hey, I really think he's inviting me into the process. I'm not in the shop every day with him. I don't do anything involving the shop at all. I take care of the home stuff. I homeschool. I take care of the kids. I make sure that he comes home and I have a healthy meal for him and do my best on that part. Right. Obviously, I'm not perfect at all of it, but any way I can support him, and that's where I feel like my role is really important. But when he brings me into our business, if you ever hear him talk, he never says my business. He always says our business. And I don't do a single thing actually inside the shop. So he's honoring me by saying that because I am playing my part, even though it's behind the scenes and maybe some people might discredit it. And sometimes I do that to myself. But he always reminds me, you are a very important part of our business, our business, not my business.
That's why you're here, Marissa, is because and it's not that I would never do a dozen episodes with just you, right? But we're trying to shine a light on you and other people that are in your situation. The little threads you did, I loved, where it was like you were showing the tools. Yeah. And you would say that, and you'd put the tool down in front of her and you'd be like, any idea what that costs? Or what is it? and everybody, your comments thread was blowing up with like, she's going to lose her mind. She's going to be, and you didn't blink an eye for whatever he said, what it cost or what it did or whatever, right?
No, I don't. He supports our family with that. And he, like I said, if it's a larger purchase, he will come and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this for the shop. This is what I envision it doing. This is my plan on how to use it. And this is my plan how to pay for it. Yeah. It's not like I'll figure it out when we figure it out. No, we're talking about a plan together and we're in agreement. So we're going to walk it out together.
I saw that discussion when you were talking about keys. And you were talking about Brian and I, what you would buy for investing in doing the keys thing, right? Yeah. Because it's a lucrative thing for you to tap into, but it's a big expense, right?
Mm-hmm. Big expense, and you have to do the ROI on it, return of investment. Yeah. Just for those that don't know what ROI, I've been there and I didn't know what ROI meant, so I still don't know what ROI is. Return on investment.
Okay,
he is way better at it than me too, and it's the same thing. Like I tried to quote what the 300% rule was today, and I'm pretty sure I bought the last third of it, right?
It's funny because I know what the 300% rule is, but somehow I always mess it up. I don't know why, but I always mix and match,
Yeah.
and I know exactly what it means though and how to do it. That's what I live and breathe by now. But like if you don't, so I was gonna say as she was talking about that stuff, we also don't. So the entire business has been run off of cash. I'll state that, but that's because in our personal life we were in a lot of debt, and 100% of it all was for me. I don't think you had any debt when we got married.
No, I didn't.
So I brought.
But I had debt after I married you because your debt became my debt.
Correct. Yes.
But no, I did not bring any
Sharesies.
extra.
Yes.
Right.
So
Thanks,
I
babe.
walked into the marriage with after the school was after, but $30,000 for UTI, and I had a $20,000 car note. I had lots of credit cards, like 8 or 9 credit cards
way too
maxed
many
out,
credit cards.
like just
Wow.
Before
buried.
you were like 20.
Yeah, buried in
You were
debt.
21 when we got married, so
So we got married young. She was 19, I was 21. So just buried in absolute debt. Now some of that was after we got married. And so once we got out of that, I clawed us out, and
by the grace of God, we got out
there's
of that
no
one.
doubt. So we got out of all consumer debt, aside from our mortgage, and that's how we've ran the business. And so, when you pay cash for something, it's different.
Yeah.
Like even if it's like a not actual physical cash, but when it's coming out of your bank account, you want to look at the ROI because you see that money. But when you run it on debt, you don't pay attention to it nearly as much. All the statistics are there. Like you don't have to take my word for it. Look up the statistics and do the research yourself. It's amazing. But that helps with less stress on our marriage because we're not so focused on, do we have all these debt payments that we have to pay every month, and how strapped are we going to be?
Yeah.
And
do we pay the parts bill, or do we go to the grocery store?
exactly.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like
And I've seen that.
Lucas and David talk about that, how they were literally like, we were going to either buy groceries or pay the parts bill.
Yeah.
Now, when it's just you two, maybe you can figure it out. But when you've got a house full of, not a house full, but you have 2 children at home.
Yeah.
How do you come home to them and say, there's no cereal, there's no milk, there's no bread, because we're paying a parts bill
Right.
at the shop? Those young children, that means nothing to them. They have no grasp, no concept of what's going on there.
No.
This is why, when Lucas started to show me the realities of what a lot of shop owners are, and as I've gotten to know you and when you were first starting out, what the reality was, I've changed some of my perspectives about what a lot of shop owners are. And we had, just as I was sitting over there, we get talking a lot about fear. And fear being the motivation for why we don't do things, why we don't make changes.
Yes.
And I've come to realize that a lot of people are just scared. But I also made a very poignant statement to them. The reality is, at the end of the day, we can't still use fear as an excuse, because it's a more accepted excuse to not do something.
Yeah.
The reality is there's examples like yourself. There's examples of other successful people out there that have done it, that we can't continue to sit there and say, it's okay because you're scared. The change has to happen regardless.
Yes.
So scared is not going to cut it anymore for the reason why people don't do it. Right? And that's tough talk.
Yeah.
It really is because, and here's what I feel. I'm feeling like as some of the people are getting I'm older than you guys, but the younger people that are starting to age up in this industry and are doing it a different way and setting a different example, like yourself, of how you market yourself so well. The older people, I think, more established shops are starting to go, wow, there is some truth to what, they're saying, that you don't have to always do it the way we always did it, because that's always the way it's been done.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't fly anymore, right? We're in a situation here where we have to change things up in order to sell this to the customers, and to sell it to the next generation who want to take this on as a career.
Yeah.
And I'm scared to. It's not hacking it,
You got to face your fears one day.
because every other industry out there is evolving, is changing daily, and we're still sometimes sitting in the they bring their own parts because we let them, and we've always let them, and I don't know if I didn't let them where I'd be.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like in that what we were talking about earlier in Cecil's class, like what he said is like his goal is to get you making money so you can be home with your family. And I heard something really powerful from a TikTok recently, maybe just a few months back, but he was talking about your kids, and he was saying your kids only want you. They don't want anything else. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care about the bills. They don't care about how stressed you are. They don't care what's going on at work. They don't care about your fights as a husband and wife. All they want is you. They don't care what's going on around them. They literally just want mom and dad, and they want to spend time with you. And if you're at the shop all day long, 24/7, working every day, you're going to miss it and you're going to regret it. And
if they don't have that acceptance, and obviously we accept them, and you love your kids, that's just how it is. But if they don't receive that and understand that and know that, guess what? Everyone desires love. I don't care where you are, where you're from. Everyone desires love. And guess what? If your kids aren't getting it from you, they're going to go somewhere else and look for it somewhere else. Yeah. And it's not going to be in a good place.
And that's the scary thing, right? When we see so many people that fall into bad ways, bad places.
Yeah.
It's not that they always come from, every parent ever out there says, I loved my kids.
Right.
Yeah.
But did you love them by what you were doing?
Right.
As a way to show love, when the reality is you just miss things.
Right. Yeah. We worked with teens a lot at our church, and we see it come from great families, healthy families, but we haven't invested as parents into our kids enough in the way that they can receive the love. Everyone kind of, takes love in a different way, but you have to learn and have a relationship with your kids to understand how to love them properly, to let them know, hey, you think one of our kids thinks very differently than we do. So it's been a challenge to really figure out how we can communicate to them to show them that we love them and care them, even though they're very different from our personalities.
And they're both very different from each other. And so we have to show them love differently than the other. Like my son is much different than my daughter, and so we do not show them love the same way because it's not the same for them.
So can we elaborate on that without getting too
Sure.
personal?
Of course.
Let's do that.
So besides the fact that they're boy and girl,
yes.
obviously that makes a big difference.
Big part.
I don't care what anybody else says, it's a big difference.
It is a huge difference.
But our daughter is very creative. She thinks very out of the box. She's very, she's never played with toys, and nobody ever believes me when we say that, but she's never played with toys. I walked into her room the other day and she had decorated her room with tissues, so just things like that. And Chris and I walk in and we're like, oh my gosh, this is a mess. Like, this is terrible. But to cut her down in something that she's so proud of and that she took time, and we're going to say, wow, that's really cool. Like, you decorated your room with tissues. In my mind, I'm like, that is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's $50 for the tissue.
Yeah, because you're thinking, like, it's a mess. Says. You have to clean it up.
Yeah,
it costs money. But to her, she just made like the most amazing thing ever. And she spent all this time. And so, and I want to let everyone know I am still learning all of this. And I have fallen very short on this. And it was a very... rude awakening on several situations that I had, and it was for sure God like letting me know, like, hey, this is not how you handle this, and you need to figure this out and pay attention, because again, to her, like, she has this great grand idea or whatever, and all I'm focused on is, it's going to cost this, or now I got to clean up this mess, or
like you made a mistake, you did it wrong, that sort of thing.
And she has no idea. She's 6 years old.
Yeah,
she don't know.
Right.
So, but to me, I'm like, but you have to set aside that. And again, I'm far from perfect. I need to reiterate that, far from perfect. I'm still learning all of this. And I think a lot of times when people listen to this, they're like, oh, well, it sounds like they got it all figured out.
No, we do not.
Not even close. We're still in the learning or process of all of this. And we're still growing every day. And so we're just trying to figure it out. But the great thing is we noticed it, and now we're trying to nurture it and better ourselves. And so now instead we have to stop ourselves, be aware, and okay, now I need to approach this a different way. I need to look at this. It's fine, whatever, the mess. There's always a mess. When you have kids, there's always a mess.
Yes.
So you just, okay, that's so amazing. We show her excitement, and we get in there and do it with her, like, oh, not
Appreciate it.
yeah, like, oh, let me help you decorate the room, or let me help you do this. Like, get involved with it now instead of making it, oh,
Just
it's a
have
terrible
to be
thing.
intentional.
So
Correct.
that initial reaction that you had,
Yeah.
is that how you were brought up?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
very much so.
Yeah.
Very, very, very tough. My dad, and my dad was very tough when I was young, and I've got some stories, but I have a great relationship with my dad now. So, but he was raised with 9 other kids, or 9 kids total, right?
Yeah, he was one of 8, and his dad died when he was 15.
One of 9. He's
One of 9.
Yeah, he's one of 9, and his dad died when he was super young.
So his mom basically raised all of those kids.
All 9 kids
for
by
a long
herself.
time by herself.
She's a saint.
Yeah.
So
Grandma
he
Dorothy.
became a man at a very young age.
Yes.
Very, very young. And then my mom got pregnant when she was 15. So, yeah. So, yeah, see, he didn't have a great example as well. And same thing. Like, he's the hardest, I'm not kidding you when I say this, the hardest working man you will ever meet in your entire life. And so that was my example growing up is work harder, work harder, work harder. And thankfully, like, I do work very hard, like, especially
Yes, you
when the time comes. But I also, again, know now that I understand it and have now created these boundaries, but I'm also in a position with my business where I've changed so many things that I don't have to work 24/7 to make the money,
Right.
to feel like, what I mean? Because you're in that situation. I don't fault anybody for doing that, because that's what they have to do in that moment. But if they just take the time to learn it and understand it, and I will preach this probably till the day I die. Learn your numbers. You need to learn and understand the numbers. I cannot say that enough, because you can't know how to run the business without understanding the numbers. And I'm not even that great at the numbers. Someone like Dutch is like,
it's such a different level with him, right?
Yes.
Like I don't even try to discuss the business the way you just try to discuss the business thing with him. I just sit back from the mechanic standpoint, and he beats me in every kind of conversation that we have about perspectives, because it's like he's just such an intelligent, learned
Yes.
individual that you cannot. And it's not just somebody who's read a whole lot of books.
no.
It's lived it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Right? So that's the other thing that is what makes it even twice as effective, is because he doesn't just, talk to a whole lot of people and take perspectives.
Yeah.
He's been through it. It's tested, tried, and true, right? Like, so.
You knowing those numbers too, I feel it gave you peace,
Yeah.
because it's like the unknown. And when you're struggling in the unknown, it's so much harder. And then once you had that click, those numbers came together, you had peace over it. It was still hard, but at least you knew where you were headed.
Yeah. And also, understanding and learning that helped me, make the changes that I needed to make, knowing what I needed to do, because I had no
Right.
idea.
Right.
And it's so hard, as I feel like a lot of times as one person shop owners, because this doesn't get talked about very much, but because you're doing everything, most of the time you feel so overwhelmed, you don't know what to do. It was either Vision or AST, I can't remember. I was in the middle of a class and they were talking about putting all these processes in place. And so they asked for questions, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. It's just me. I'm doing everything. And I in my mind, I can't make another change because I feel stuck, because I'm so busy literally doing everything.
Yeah.
So, but you have to slow down a lot of times, which we're usually unwilling to do. Slow down, take some time, understand it to make the changes, and it sucks, and you're going to probably lose a little bit of revenue,
It's scary to slow down.
but it's going to benefit you way more in the long run. And it has to, but you have to make the decision. I can sit here and preach at you all day long until that person makes that decision.
I saw that I can remember from your TikTok and your Instagram, when you're talking about your numbers, know your numbers. And you and I know who you're addressing that to.
Yeah.
Certain people in your followings and certain people in the social circles that we run, where we know shop owners in those groups, and we're like, you need to know them. And then we see some people that have big followings that from a business standpoint are drowning.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Like they are brilliant mechanics,
Yeah.
but they are so in need of these kind of conversations, and they're so in need of a trip to hear like this.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so proud that Rich is here.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of that. Like people think it's just crazy, like that I'm so excited that a guy like him meets a guy like you.
Yeah. It's
Right?
awesome.
Because it's like you're on one side of not one side, but you and I are tight in ASOG and chain industry.
Yeah.
We're heavily involved in that. And then you've got a guy like him that is just, it's a new thing to him.
Yeah.
Right. And he's starting to see, and it's like, we want to bring those people to this. And it's not like trying to get everybody going to the same a cult or church or whatever like that. It's not about that. It's not trying to sell anybody something. It's just like, these people can help you.
Yeah.
And the most of them will be willing to do it for free.
Yeah.
The way you learned. Right.
Well, and it's like we've talked about it before. We don't agree on everything.
No.
Me and Brian don't agree on everything. Me, you, Noah, and
Yeah.
like there's oftentimes we get in discussions and we don't agree on anything, but we're all respectful enough because at the end of the day we have a common vision.
Yeah.
We know where we want the industry to go, and so there's something bigger than us. So we have those conversations, and we may not agree, but it does get us thinking. I say that all the time, like. Somebody like I'm very hard-headed, as you know, very hard-headed, and so a lot of times, like there are sometimes somebody will say something to me, and I'm like, nah, like instantly brush it off, and then a couple of days later, I'll start thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? That's probably pretty good, and then I start to ponder and ponder more, and then I'm like, you know what? They're probably right, and then I'll start diving into it and do my own research, and then there are other times they'll say something, and I'm like, no, and then I think about it later, I'm like, no, that's stupid. Like it is dumb, but you even me being hard-headed as I am, I'm still open enough
Give the thought a chance.
Give the thought a chance. And there are only a couple things I never ever question at all, but aside from that, like everything else, I'm like it's open. Like let's discuss it. Let's see if it actually works, and have those conversations. But again, just because we're, like you said, we want to get everybody here, it doesn't mean we're not all going to agree on the same exact stuff. That's okay, but rising tides raise all ships.
And that's why when I want to reach out to more and more people, and I want to say, like, my dream for this conference would have been if we could have had Check Engine Chuck, and Paul sit down.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like you shared the meme that went around. Mario, I think, spearheaded it first, and it's like, you better lower your voice when you talk to me if you don't know scanner denters. And then somebody immediately within, 10 minutes of that being up goes, you better lower your voice to me if you don't know who Check Engine Chuck is. And we're literally talking about the divide of one person is in TikTok in a very big way.
Yeah.
That's Chuck. And then Paul is in a big way on YouTube. And what I'm not trying to do is one is better than the other.
Yeah, no.
But I mean, the fact that Chuck knows who Paul is, but Paul doesn't get to know who Chuck is, right?
Yeah.
Or they know who Mario is. Like, it was so cool last night to be sitting here, and I kept saying to Mario, I said, I name off this name and I name off that name, and he's like, I might have seen that guy, but I don't really know who that is. And I'm like, Mario, I haven't mentioned your name to anybody in a long, long time that doesn't know who Super Mario Diagnostics are.
Yeah.
And he goes, blows it off. But I mean, so the whole thing for me to come here to this and to see you again and to be able to bring Rich and was to try and get those people to connect with what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Because if they listen to this, that's one thing. They listen to this and they go home and maybe change how they do things at the shop to make it easier on their home life.
Yeah.
They learn how to tweak their numbers a little bit so that they don't have to work 7 in the morning until 7 at night, 6 days a week.
Yeah, and you don't have to, by the way.
Yeah. But you'll hear the excuses, right, of why you have to.
Yeah.
And you know that the excuses are not the truth.
Right. Yeah, we've seen them. We walked them. And I think you have to stop telling yourself that.
Yeah.
Well, again, like we talked about, like you and I and Marissa and everybody else, we can talk. And I love podcasts. I'm a huge proponent of podcasts. I want to get as many people on this podcast as humanly possible.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like you just said, like we can only talk so much. We can talk to our blue in the face, but until we actually put some action behind it, it doesn't change anything. And I had to make the decision myself to make those changes. And that's why I constantly say when I'm doing these videos talking about what I've changed and what I do now in my shop, guess what? I was in your position working 7 to 7. I was in your position not making any money. I didn't take a paycheck for this first 6 months that I started my shop. I realized that my shop was not going to survive if I kept going the way I was going, so I had to make changes. I can't tell you why it was easier than for me than I see a lot of shop owners do at making those decisions and changes, because it didn't take me long.
It might be, I mean, also, what about support? Maybe,
I was just going to say that.
Sometimes.
How big a factor is she?
I mean, that's very possible. I mean, it's always a big factor to me. Like, she has never, ever, like, gone against me. She's always been supportive from the very
might
beginning.
Ask questions.
Oh, yeah, she always
Either if I don't understand or I'm like, doesn't sound like a great idea.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this a little bit more? And yeah, I'm not a mechanic. I know nothing about cars. So I might ask a little bit more questions, or I'm not an entrepreneur. It's just not inside of me. So I might have a little bit more questions, but I'm not second guessing you. I just want to know more so we can be on the same page.
Yeah, like somebody asked us, because I did questions on our way down here, and somebody asked, like, were there ever any doubts? And I was
like, nope.
She had no doubts.
Not
and
me.
I was like, yeah, I have lots of doubts.
Yeah.
But she never doubted for a minute that I wasn't going to succeed. So, how much does that do for me, right?
Oh,
like,
it's you can't put a measure on that.
yeah. And she's been like that, even before, when we weren't on a journey of like just growing and bettering ourselves and having these crazy life experiences and stuff. When you go through stuff like that, it changes your perspective, right? Your entire outlook on life and everything changes. So
I think that's one of the surprising things when I came to AST. This is my second year. So I came with Chris last year, and he was like, hey, I want you to go with me. And I was like, why? I was like, that makes no sense. I'm going to have to figure out what to do with the kids. I'm like, I got to get a sitter. I got to pack their food and make sure everything's good. I'm like, that just sounds like a lot of work for me to follow you around a conference with a bunch of dudes. Okay, like, just being honest.
hey, there's some ladies here.
There are some ladies. I've met a couple ladies that are great. But he really wouldn't let me say no. And he was like, you're coming with me and it's going to be fine. I think the most surprising thing for me coming here has been I didn't expect it to be so like welcoming, even on my side.
Yeah.
So like, it's been a really benefit. I mean, I've taken notes and classes to help me. And my goal, obviously, I'm not going to implement those in our shop because I don't work in our shop, but I can help encourage him as he is doing that. So I actually texted myself today and I said, a note to myself, this is specific ways I'm going to start encouraging him every day, because I know that he is going to be heading up some hard things. He's going to do that. And if I'm not there encouraging him, who's going to? If your wife, if you're not encouraging your husband, who's going to encourage him? You're the one that he sees every morning and every night and every day. So I'm just challenging you out there, wives. Yeah. Even if you are frustrated with your husband, or if you feel like he's not doing his part on the business side or the family side, challenge yourself to get over yourself and just encourage your husband and just try it. I'm just challenging you. Try it, see what happens. Because if we continue doing that, then if I make him feel like he's the greatest man alive, then guess what? He's going to go out there and be the greatest man alive. So just do it.
It's that vote of confidence and that security of feeling like everything can go wrong, and she's pulling for you, right?
Yeah,
You've had days like that.
Oh yeah,
we've talked about like that, like some of the cars that just kick your butt.
Oh yeah,
and it's like so much for me where it went wrong is I would have days where nothing went right. Cars would kick my butt, and I didn't really have anyone to come home to that wanted to understand, what it was about, and even. They just, it was tough, it is really. And so when you have somebody that makes you feel like whatever it is, you close that door, leave it behind you.
Yeah.
You're now, this is the real reason that you're here.
Yes.
This is the real point of your life.
Yes.
Is your children and your wife and the legacy that you're going to leave. None of that mattered.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter after we come through that door. And it's hard to separate that. And that's just not
Very
in our
hard.
industry. I think it's in so many industries and anybody's workplace.
100%.
But I'm better at it now. But I mean, I have a little white dog that, like I can complain to in that sense.
There you go.
She loves me, regardless. And that blew my mind. But I didn't realize how much better I was at my job when I had somebody that I could just come home and relax with, which it can be a pet, but I mean a spouse, it doesn't matter. I really fear for the people that are I've seen go through a relationship breakup, and they come home to not a lot.
Not a lot, but here's the thing. I like it. It's gonna sound like I'm just gonna push for AST or some sort of training, because when you come here now, you create relationships with other shop owners, and so you feel like you're the only person going through this. Eric just told me today after their episode dropped, he had so many people emailing him saying we're struggling with the same thing. Like everybody thinks that they're struggling with something by themselves. You're not the only person. And like, how many times have I messaged in the group asking for help for something and I'm having a rough day or whatever, and y'all help me? You know, that is the kind of support system. If you're not married, if you don't have a girlfriend or something, you can still have a support system with other shop owners or other people in the industry that you can relate to them and they can relate to you. And you need that mentally, physically, you need all of that spiritually, you need all of that stuff to you need basically like a sounding board. Just
loneliness is a real thing.
Yeah,
and
100%.
I think people run away from it or deny it.
Yeah.
They're ashamed that if they feel lonely, and you can feel lonely even when you're married.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel lonely in the shop all the time because I work in the shop by myself, and I absolutely hate it. I don't like being out in the shop by myself. It's one of the worst things that I deal with, is being out in the shop by myself all day long. Maybe that's why I started
I'll send the kids out whenever you want.
and maybe that's why I started recording myself. I have no idea.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because I mean, you seem very, like, all your stuff when you put it out there seems very random. Like it just kind of happened, and it's like, I'm going to record this. Yeah. But you wake up every day with a dialogue about what I'm going to somewhat and what I'm going to discuss today.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me because, like, going back to it, I reached out to you because it's like the podcast was doing good, but I'm like, there's so many people that I want to reach with it. How do I do that? And you just started giving me little tidbits of like, okay, so put that on TikTok and put that on TikTok and put that on Instagram. And this is, and you're going way over my level. But I mean, I'd be lying if I said TikTok hasn't been the biggest growth of my podcast that I've been responsible. Now, Paul Danner, every time he mentions me and the podcast, the analytics just shoot through the roof. Like Lucas and David and I were talking about it before lunch. He says it's crazy.
Yeah.
Every time Paul says it, 5,000 more people find your podcast. 5,000.
It's a lot.
Crazy.
People find it.
And
right?
that's what's wild is when you think about it, you know, how many times he mentions it, but how big the following is. That's what I hate the most about the algorithms.
Yeah.
Is like, you know, I can post a reel. I have 50-something thousand followers on Instagram. Only 5,000 actually see it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I have 50,000 people. Like, that's so frustrating.
That's not frustrating at all.
It's like you put all this work in and you're like, you want to put it out there and you want people to see it and interact with it, and they don't because the algorithm is goofy. But,
it is.
You know, that's the nice thing is like these people that are connected, again, all are looking to do the same thing. We're all looking to help the industry and better it. That's why I love what Paul's doing and making these videos, having these conversations, because again, we need to talk about it and then we need to put it into action afterwards. Like, let's figure out, well, okay, this is what we want. We're going to figure that out and talk about it. And then how can we put it in action? What can we do after that as a collective, the entire industry, and then go from there?
You know, like Paul and I were talking last night, and I said, you know, this is what we intend to do with you. I said, we're going to have a commercial that's going to run during every episode of the podcast. And he gets so mad because he's like, you guys mention me in every podcast. And I go, first of all, I don't tend to mention you. The guests are always mentioning you.
Yeah.
Because the common thread here with so many people in the industry that we're now talking to is it was through him that they found their path.
Yeah.
Right. So, and he says, and I said, so, well, he's like, I want to sponsor you and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, you know, you've already done so much more for me. And he's like, but no, he's like, I want to do it. No one has, you know, I need to do this for you. But he doesn't realize, he's starting to realize. But the same as he doesn't think he did anything all that special, I don't think me mentioning him so much and talking about him is all that special. I'm just being genuinely transparent when I say the man changed my trajectory on where I was going with this industry.
Yeah.
There's two guys, Lucas and Paul, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And so when he gets aw shucks about it, and I want to, like, he's better now. He's starting to really realize. He said to me just the other day, I didn't realize how many people's lives I touched until I started to see the feedback that's happening in this podcast.
Doesn't that happen sometimes? You put in and you put the seed in the ground and you put it and you harvest it, and it takes a while for that to come up. And you kind of, in that beginning seasons, you kind of have to work on things before you can kind of push it all the way out there.
And it comes from such a magical place from him, because he literally, if you go back and watch his first videos, he is literally just in a classroom recording the video to be able to then just have it as a learning aid, so that they can go back if they miss the lecture, they miss the classroom, be able to watch it, and it's uploaded on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I've heard that a lot playing while I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep.
That's what we told him last year when I met him. I was like, well, she probably heard your voice a lot when I was laying in bed, because I'm like you, or weirdos that we work on cars all day long and then go home and learn more about cars.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is true, and I think it was a big deal for me, like, to be able to meet him. Like, I was all giddy about it last year, and I mean, he literally shaped my diagnostic testing career. Like, that's why I started branching out. I was at the dealership. They didn't even know what an oscilloscope was at the dealership. I was the first person to ever buy one and use it at the dealership. And they're like, what is this? And I helped a guy diagnose a CAN bus issue from a body shop car, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just poking and prodding around, and we figured it out, and it was great. And I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff actually works. But it makes a difference. Like, I think I don't know, like, that's what I told her. Like, none of this started, like, my social media stuff. I didn't start to do any of this. We were just talking about this. I didn't start it all to try to change the industry or, be a voice for the industry. None of that stuff. It started out with me wanting to get free tools. That is literally how it started. And then I was like, the tools are nice, but it's just not, like, I don't know. Like,
fulfilling.
It's not fulfilling. And I still like I love tools.
Yes, we can see that.
I love my tools, but being able to talk about the automotive industry stuff, and especially, like, it seems like TikTok, that's very popular, and I was not utilizing TikTok. Now that I am, like, those videos do really well, and the conversation's really great. And there's a lot of people talking about it, and more people are understanding it. And it's much more fulfilling. And the goal is, I think, collectively, again, for all of these people, is we want what's best for all of the people in the industry, because we so undervalue ourselves. So undervalue ourselves. Even to this day, like, I value myself pretty well, and I still feel like I undervalue myself even more. And I think that's just it, is, we're very, as a collective group, we're all just kind of humble, I guess. I don't know. I guess it's probably the best way to put it. Like, we don't want the spotlight. Like, I don't want people to come up and, I'm like, that's not why I did it. Like, talking about the mat thing. I told her that before.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not why I didn't do it for that. I don't.
And I said to you right at lunch, I was bragging on you, because that's what I do, because it is such and hopefully when he arrives tomorrow, we might be able to sit down with him for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And because I want to hear him. I really want to hear him talk about if he'd ever made this kind of move in his career without you. I think we know what the answer is on that, right?
Yeah.
We kind of talked about that. So I am so proud of you, because, and some people could say, well, Chris does that to get follows. Chris does that to get people to like to watch his next reel. I know I've known you long enough now, right? Because we were connected really last year at AST.
Yeah.
That I know that's not where the motive is for Chris.
No, I can attest to that.
Chris is wants to see this industry, and I'm even worse than you, because you've seen me. I'll share stuff, and it's like, this guy is saying this about text at the dealer, and I'd punch him through the phone if I could.
Yeah.
And you get mad, but you get mad in a different way, and you step up and go in a much more diplomatic way, dude, you need training. Whereas I might go, you are the problem with the industry, and you get up there and go, dude, you need training. I was exactly where you are. And then people go, well, okay, that's a lot of people just leave it at there. For what you did for that young man, I'm so excited to be able to hear and see now if any of it sticks.
Yeah.
What he's going to be exposed to if any of it sticks. And I hope to God it does.
Yeah.
I want to be confident that it will.
Yeah.
Right? Because you had resistance to making the change, right? We all talk about that.
Yeah.
And I hope that he's got the same kind of security, I don't want to call it security blanket, support system
Yeah.
like that you are to see him achieve that, because that would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know?
I think so. He told me that he had talked with his wife and kids before, you know, they had discussed it as a family. So I don't know much about him. I'm excited to meet him and talk to him. And
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I want to know the backstory,
yeah,
right?
I don't know. I literally know nothing about him.
I think he is like, I don't think he has a backstory similar to you and I. I think he's almost all self-taught.
He might be. Yeah. I like I said, I don't know. It's just like we had talked about. I just stewed on it for multiple days.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what can I do? What can I actually do to make a change in this guy's life? And I don't know.
I do believe your words were, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah,
something along those lines. Like, I'm just going to actually just do
and that's
something about
exactly
it.
what you did.
Yeah.
And there's so few of us that don't. Like I was bragging on him last night, and it's just like, we don't, like, there's a lot of people in a way bigger operation than yourself, way different numbers than what you make. You don't have to disclose your numbers or whatever, right? But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And
I
here
would hope
you-
they would.
Yeah. But they don't. And I asked you just at lunchtime, I'm like, how did you think about that? Because he's all of a sudden going to open up his wallet, grab a stranger, and
I trust his heart and I trust his discernment. So when he told me, I said, oh, well, that sounds awesome. Great. Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you're going to do something like that, you just have to say, we're so focused on like, if we're going to pay for this or do this,
The end result.
What's the end result? They may not
What's
show
the
up.
investment
Yeah,
gonna
Right.
return?
and it's like, you just,
It
you
wasn't
can't
a
think of
business
it that
move.
way. No.
It wasn't a
didn't
business
benefit me at all. I
Right.
didn't make any money. I lost money. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not lost, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like getting money back. Nobody paid for anything. I just decided, and I was like, well, like I was weighing out the pros and cons, and I thought, well, we might pay, and he might not show up, like, because I had to pay before him. But I thought, you know what? Who cares? Like, it's $500-600. I don't even know what the total was.
Yeah.
$500 or $600. Like, whatever. Just
you were
count it.
coming anyway.
Coming anyways. It's
Yeah.
no big deal. If I can help him and change the trajectory of his career like it has for me, then why not? It's worth the chance in my mind. What's $600 at the end of the day?
Another family is worth the chance.
Oh,
because if he
100%.
improves the things that he needs to, it will change his entire outlook and family life.
It'll change his family tree. Legitimately change his life, his
Yes.
wife's life, his kids' lives, their kids' life. That's what Dave Ramsey always says, is changing people's family trees. Like, that's literally what it's changed ours.
Yeah.
I mean, because we weren't going anywhere. The business, we were either going to stay that way forever
Right.
and never actually make money, which profit is not a dirty word.
That's
I
right.
just want to continue saying that. Or we were going to go out of business, and then I would have that failure hanging around my neck, and who knows how I would take that, because that's just, some people take that differently than other, and I'm not that
Right.
type of person to take
I-
failure very well.
I adore you to heck, but I have a feeling that if you had went out on your own and it failed, you would have been almost unemployable.
I would
back.
say you're probably
Right?
100%
Because
right.
I know what your personality is like, and I know your pride, and I know your
Yes.
your stubbornness and,
Yes.
and your strength and conviction. And I think that that's what happens to a lot of people out there after they do that. And you see these these stories of I owned my own shop. And then Mario has a coworker who I was talking to his shop owner, and he used to run a shop. And then he made some really good business, and he doesn't even need to work.
Right.
He's very well off.
Yeah.
Like wealthy well off.
Yeah.
But why is he still going in and working on vintage Porsches all the time? Because he absolutely loves it.
Right.
Now, that's a guy that is going to have a successful, I used to be a shop owner, now I'm an employee again, and it's successful.
Yes.
Because there's that safety blanket there. You and I haven't even been the shop owner yet, and it's very frustrating sometimes for me with all the people I network with and all the things that I've learned and been shown and seen. I'm not always the easiest person to employ, because I'm always been the way that I will say what's on my mind. If you ask me, how would you handle that? That's probably not the best way to do it, because I'm going to be like, well, firstly, and then it goes into a tirade.
Yeah.
And then the person's looking at me like, first of all, where did you get all that information? And then second of all, how dare you? Mm-hmm. Right? Because I don't just back it up with an opinion. I'll back it up with an example of how somebody does it different and why it works for them. Mm-hmm. And I'll some fact. That's not always welcome. So I'm glad, I'm proud of where you are, and I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud to see that this is going so good for you. And I'm proud to heck of what you've done with this young man, because it's I'll brag about you for a long time, because if we see it change his life, like we said, mm-hmm. then there is nobody that deserves more credit than yourself and him.
I'll just give God all the credit. Cause
yeah, well, but you're the
vessel.
The vessel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah. Yes, I am the vessel.
I mean, you did say yes.
It is
yes.
But and
again, I don't know. It's weird to me. Like, I just don't. It's
like you don't want to make it about yourself.
Yes, it's.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to.
Yeah, I know.
But
I appreciate it.
Worth,
for sure.
It's worth celebrating what you did.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if it doesn't pan out to be something great for him, or he may take a job driving truck in 2 years. We don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, maybe it's an opportunity for somebody else who feels that tug on their heart towards somebody, or maybe it's frustration tug. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I mean, shout out to David Hall again. Like, he paid for his flights to get here. Like,
Absolutely.
Out of that video, how many other shop owners saw that video? And I gave the open welcome that anybody who wanted to help, they were more than welcome to. And only one person reached out to me. So,
wow.
That the invitation was open, and 100, I think the last time I checked, it was like 100,000 or over 100,000 people saw that video. So, and that was just on TikTok alone. Yeah. So, we've got to do something different.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess that's what I would say about all that. We've got to try something different. And if different is start paying for people's, because they're not going to do it on their own in most cases, unless they're in such a desperate situation where they absolutely have to. And so this gives them an opportunity. Now, I will say again, I think they need to have some sort of skin in the game. They need to pay for something.
Yep.
I don't like paying for literally everything.
Yeah.
So I want them to have some skin in the game, and you just have to count the money gone. And it's not about the money, right? Like, it's about the person, and hopefully that they take it and learn and grow and do learn the same things that I did and better their lives. That, and at the end of the day, that's what we want, because the more people that better their lives and better their business, the better off everyone is. The better off the industry is, the better off their employees that they hire are. Like, that's what he said in the original response videos. He wants to grow the business eventually. So there is no better place to learn how to grow an automotive shop than here.
Right here.
Any sort of training event. And someone just asked me, like, hey, which one do you think's the best? I'm like, ASTE, because it's like the family one. Like, you can get to know way more people because it is a little bit smaller, and it's getting bigger very quickly. But it's still my favorite by far. Yeah. And so I just can't say enough about training and the trajectory and what it's done for our lives.
Our family,
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's changed a massive amount.
What day do you teach with Kim and
Brian? Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Yep.
And you're going to be doing what with them?
Short form video. So it's rev up your marketing with video.
Yeah. Did you ever think last year that you'd come back in a year's time and be up on in a classroom teaching?
No, I mean, never in my wildest dreams.
And that's pretty cool for them to reach out to you.
Amazing.
Because they're on the top of their game.
Oh yeah,
they're really great.
Marketing, right? They are fantastic.
I preach this all the time on my social media. I've been using them for a year now, and they've done fantastic. Their entire team's fantastic. Yeah. They're fantastic. They paid for the Brittany's website last year because she had won a scholarship, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And so they paid for her website you know, they built the entire thing and did that all for free. Like that, to me, that was what made me want to sign up with them, because I'm like, that right there is a perfect example right there. Putting your money where your mouth is, helping another business owner. And you know, that I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer for me. That shows me what type of people they are.
They truly want people to succeed in their business.
Yeah. And I'm not the nicest person online. People know that. Like, but at the end of the day, like I just said on my story, I said, hey, I may have been mean to you. Come say hi to me.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yes.
Like, it's not personal. I promise. I'm a nice person overall. Like, we're going to get in disagreements. We're not going to agree on it. It's okay. Like, at the end of the day, we probably want the same thing.
The amount of people that come up to me that I have only maybe spoke with and want to hug me, it feels so overwhelming, right? Because I'm a hugger anyway. So it's like, I'm not uncomfortable by that.
Yeah.
Right. I told David Roman I'm going to hug him before I go home, and he's like, you can see him, he's getting tense. He's like, I don't like people to touch me. Mm-hmm. It's not about you. It's about me.
Yeah. Let me give him a hug.
That's right. Kiss that bald head of yours. But so it's to be able to touch the people that the way I've been touched, and what this has brought me, the friendship that you and I have, right?
Oh yeah.
And it all starts with, I give so much glory to Brian, because this all started out with Brian and I talking every day.
Yeah.
And I would go on these, like, where I'd be on a road test in the morning first thing, and I'd be ranting these 4-minute, 5-minute, text messenger rants, all vocal, because I'm driving. You wouldn't believe what I'm. And then he would come back with one, and it just became, so that was our morning routine. And then we just, more and more people, we just started adding to the group. And we know some of us have had some things happen in our lives, and they reach out to us. Brian was a person that I had talked to for years. I never met him in person until last year. Last year was a big year for me.
Yeah.
Because all of these people, I finally got to actually come up, and it's like, I'm not shaking your hand. Yes, I'm meeting you for the first time, but you feel like family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so powerful, so yeah, we have some tough conversations, and sometimes we're not nice online, and we certainly don't agree on everything. But that brotherhood, that family that we've developed through these conversations. Young Noah is struggling, right? Noah is feeling, and Noah messages me. He messages me, and he'll call on Friday night, and he's like, last week, he's like, I'm beginning to feel like the jaded mechanic. I'm at the shop, and they've made some changes at the shop, and I'm not making hours. And he's like, what would you do? And I'm like, I'd be right in there tomorrow morning, and I'm going to say this, that, and the other thing. And I'm going to take that confidence that I have in myself. And if you're not going to value me, somebody else will.
100%.
And
especially if you're willing to learn and you're willing to work. It's so rare,
such a talented
to have
young man.
all of that, and for a company not to take full advantage of that, it's their loss.
But he is when he tells you the story of what's happening, it's so eerily similar to the dealer I left 10 years ago. The shop foreman has got more pull and more clout and more control than the service manager. So he goes to the service manager and says, I'm told that I can't go to training, that there's no openings, but yet I log in and it shows that the seats aren't even full. So the shop foreman is dictating when I can go to training. And he's a guy that, like, the training would be the best investments you're going to put into anyone in the shop. Yeah. That's your kid for that. I say kid, he's not a kid. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Young man.
Younger than us, for sure.
Yeah. And I'm just like, brother, I feel where you've been. I've been there. I know what you're going through. And I can tell you that every time I have ever felt like it was enough and I left, I went to something better.
Yeah. And
you are leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at your age. So if you think that you're limited, you're crazy. Now
it's that fear thing, right? Like you don't want to be uncomfortable. You don't know what is on the other side. It's hard to always make that decision. And what Joyce Meyer always says, do it afraid. Like, sometimes you just have to do it afraid. I mean, I started the shop afraid. I still have months now that I'm afraid. I still have slow days. Like, a shop owner messaged me on our way here, and he was like, hey man, like, he sent me his numbers his first month, and he had a killer first month, and then he's super slow now. He was booked out multiple weeks, and I said, hey, it's okay. I said, I still have days where I don't have any appointments, and I've been doing this for 3.5 years. I said, it's all right. Here's what I would recommend you do. Here's, and he sent me like a little Facebook ad post thing that he made. I'm like, I would make some changes and, do this and adjust this. And I said, I basically just hopefully walked him through it, because in the beginning of the business, you're terrified.
Yes.
And so you start to make decisions that you normally wouldn't make because you are scared. And so you just have to be careful, is all.
Well, you guys, I want to thank Marissa. Thank you. Chris, I love you, buddy. I'm so happy to have you here, man. And again, I'm so proud of you. I'm going to continue to brag about you. And I know that you don't handle it, and it doesn't make sense, but you deserve it. So I want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
That's great.
I mean,
Appreciate
this is a cool dynamic, and you deserve as much of the credit as I give to him. It is very much a team thing, and it's been
that.
interesting to have you here and be able to share that, because I had that suspicion, and he had always said, she's the other half, it's as much hers, but he puts himself out there, right? And he makes himself such a presence that, and you kind of hide in the back and
little bit.
And so I wanted to be able to shine a light on you of how this dynamic works.
Well, I appreciate that,
because to give the example that it can work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
but it's not just going to happen.
No.
Yeah, you got to put in the work and the effort, and for sure, 100%, it goes without saying, the shop and my success I use loosely, we wouldn't be where we're at now without her, without a shadow of a doubt. We've always said it's God's business. We're just managing it.
That's right.
And, we just work together. And again, we're far from perfect. We're learning a lot. So, we're not sitting here trying to be, all
we're still
mighty
students.
Now. We're
not.
We're just talking from
anything.
experience and mistakes, and
Yes.
lots and lots of mistakes.
You never stop learning in this industry. So.
No doubt.
With that, I want to say thank you very much. We'll
absolutely.
talk to you again, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hey, if you could do me a favor real quick and comment on, and share this episode, I'd really appreciate it. And please, most importantly, set the podcast to automatically download every Tuesday morning. As always, I'd like to thank our amazing guests for their perspectives and expertise, and I hope that you'll please join us again next week on this journey of change. Thank you to my partners in the ASA group and to the Changing the Industry podcast. Remember what I always say, in this industry, you get what you pay for. Here's hoping everyone finds their missing 10 millimeter, and we'll see you all again next time.